Welcome everyone to This Week in Svelte, and I have the wrong chat open. Sorry. Sorry guys, I need to figure out this thing. I don't know why it's not showing up. So let me switch to studio mode. What? Okay, for some reason. Okay. Okay, now you should be able to see. For some reason, it was not picking up this screen here. Like it was showing my Slack. Okay. I guess it's fine. Okay. Welcome everyone to This Week in Svelte, and today will likely be a short episode. I'm sorry. I keep you promising that I will find the time to prepare something, and then I never have time. Sorry. Okay, let's ignore me asking you to pardon me, and let's go to the changelog, which is a very short one. We have 6 days ago we released this one. Not sure why it doesn't show up as new, but I guess it's fine. Okay, let's start from this one, which is fix hydration comments during HMR. So there was a PR recently that kind of broke HMR. Not really broke in the sense that it just gave an hydration warning if you were hydrating something that used HMR. I think we talked a bit about it last week. Maybe that's why maybe it shows 6 days ago, but it was already released. Okay, regardless. Okay, sorry, I was taking a look at if we already talked about this. So what I was saying is that there was a problem with the HMR. We kind of talked a bit about how HMR work last week, which is basically like we wrap every component during HMR became a signal. So every component it's a signal in itself, and then we do a bit of like whenever there is a new module update, we replace that component with the component that I'm very sorry. We replace that component with the component that it's like the new module basically. However, there was a problem that Rich fixed it, and it. However, to do that, he was basically forced to add a couple of extra comments, and that messed with how the marching algorithm inside HMR works. I don't know why I yawn so much. Okay, and basically the point is those comments were added regardless during hydration or not, and so that led to like hydration mismatch warnings if you were using an HMR component. At the end of the day, it was kind of not very like it was kind of an edge case, because at the end of the day HMR is only available during dev, so it's not like you will have this problem in production, but it's a fix for something. So Uh, null out effect.b in destroy effect. So effect.b, you may think like, what even is effect.b? This is specifically something, so whenever an effect in Svelte is effectively, pun intended, just an object. And that object has a bunch of information on it, like the branch, like the function to invoke, the tear down, so what function to execute when it gets destroyed, and stuff like that. And I can't even remember what B stands for, but we can actually check in the Svelte repo, because we can say effect, and we can check if I do this, yeah, type effect, and B is the boundary that the effect belongs to. So we use single letters because this way, like, we ship less code to the client. Like, boundary was very long, and so we tried to like make our experience a bit worse, and obviously you cannot see that. I need to zoom in. We made our experience a bit worse, but at least we we ship a bit less code to the client, and yeah, it's basically the boundary that when you are creating an effect inside a boundary, we will populate this B with that boundary. And when we are destroying it, we are also now nullifying that effect. .b. Group sync statement. I'm pretty sure that, let me see. Yeah. So there is some, yeah. So this is one bug that was catched by the thing that I was talking about before, not before, last week, which is the invariant. I'm very sorry, which is the invariant violation. So basically, if you've seen last week's episode, we recently added this invariant function, which is a very nice function because if you check what it does, so I can do function invariant, is basically, it's a silly function that just throw an error if the condition is false. And this is very useful when you have to, when you have some assumptions. So for example, here we assume that if you are in this branch, batch.roots.length is equal to 0. So if that's not true, then the code that we have after, it can fail. And so we add this invariant so that when you are running in dev, you will get an error. And if you see the error that we are throwing is actually saying an invariant violation occurred, meaning Svelte internal assumption was flawed. This is a bug in Svelte, not your app. Please open an issue at Svelte blah 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 with the following message. And this already gave us some fruit back, because some people actually got this error, and this led Simon to be able to fix this bug like this. So I think it's very nice. It's a nice thing that you can run in dev. So obviously we are not breaking people application in production, but at least during dev you can get this error, you can report it, and we can know for sure where that error originated, and then we can focus our research there. And yes, it is kind of late here, it's 6 p.m. 20 to 6. Okay. Sorry. Okay, fix defer batch resolution until earlier intersecting batches have committed. This is one of the biggest. So you've heard me talk a lot about batching recently, because that's basically at the core of what we, and by we I mostly mean Simon, Rich, and Elliot, are working on in Svelte, which is Async Svelte. And the reason why it's so complicated is because, as you might have already, I think, like, if you have worked with and hi Jean, if you have worked with async state, you know that it can be painful, and especially if you need to juggle a lot of them, because what the issue can be that like, for example, you start some async work and then some state change while that async work is still going, and then maybe the async work that started late finish earlier. So like, you have a bunch of combination of situation where some async work can just be one after the other, they can be interleaved, they can be one fully enclosed the other. So there's a lot of situation, and you have to take care of all of them. So in this case, the batch will actually be resolved, will not be resolved until earlier intersecting batches have committed. And let me see if there's some. So fixes an awkward bug with each blocks containing await, especially keyed each block. If you do array.push multiple times in distinct batches, something weird happens to each block. The array looks like this, and then looks like this, and then looks like this, and so on. That's because, as far as Svelte reactivity is concerned, what we are really doing is assigning to array at 0, then array at 1, then array at 2. Those, along with array.lang, are each backed by independent sources, which we can rewind individually when we need to apply a batch. When it comes to sources that actually are independent, this is useful, since we apply the changes from batch B to the DOM while we're still waiting for a promise in the batch A to resolve. But in this case, it's not ideal, because you would expect these changes to accumulate. In particular, this fails with keyed each block, because duplicate keys are disallowed. So like, as you can see, like, I don't know how Rich managed to figuring out even this thing, because it's so complex. So just a second, because I want to highlight a message here, because we have one message from, I need to refresh, sorry. Chat, retry. Okay, so I want to highlight a message here, which is this one. Components can't be kept dumb anymore with async. I guess it's the root complexity. And I actually disagree with this. It's not that component can't be kept dumb. Like, you can keep a component dumb. It's up to you. And actually, I think it's a good practice to have a component as dumb as possible. What async unlock is the ability to have components that are not dumb. So if you want to fetch data inside some component, you can actually do it. So it's not that you can't keep component dumb anymore. It's just that if you want, you have the ability to not keep them dumb. And that's actually pretty sweet, because before you actually had to fetch everything at the root, so at the root level, and then pass down everything that every component needs. And that's fine, and you can actually do the same thing today. Like, if you want to use async Svelte, you can just fetch in the plus page.svelte and then pass down the props to all the child component. But now you also have the option that if there is a component that is very enclosed, and one of my favorite example of this is I really like I want to show, I don't know if I can show you on the playground? I guess I can't, because one of my favorite component, like something that I wanted to build and I couldn't, is the ability to have like to import, like, let's say an icon.svelte component, and that icon.svelte component, what you could do is that you could say something like is equal to $props, like you get the name of the icon, for example, and then based on the name you fetch the relevant, like you import with Vite. So I can't actually show you here on the playground, but with Vite what I can do is that I can do like const. So let's say that I could technically do this, like in Vite I could do import, I don't know, home from home.svg, right? And then I could do import, I don't know, 3 from 3.svg. And then I could do import person from person.svg, right? I could do all of this. And then what I could do, I could say something like let icons is equal to home 3 person, and then I could do something like let icon is equal to $derived icons at name, right? And then I can do this, and this will basically give me a component where I can say icon name is equal to home, icon name is equal to 3, icon name is equal to person, and that will like give me the right icon. Now the issue with this kind of component in Vite is that if you have, I don't know, 1,000 icons, then every time you use this component everywhere on the page, you will import the code for all the 1,000 components, which is like not what you want. So the alternative to that could be that you actually import the icons lazily. And that's actually even better, because with Vite you can do const icons is equal to import.meta.glob. And so I could say, for example, something like /icons $.svg. Now you can actually use this in an eager way. So like you can pass a second option, you can say eager true, and this is basically the same component as before. So like this is literally returning it's literally returning an object with the on the key there's actually, so the right component would look like this. Technically I can't use, that's annoying, I can't use this. So the right component name would be something like icons /name.svg. So you basically have an object where you have, for each key is the name of the file with the whole pattern basically, and then you can just do this. So you could do this before, but this has the same problem of the other component, which is that all the icons are actually imported. If you remove eager, then the value is not the component itself anymore, but is a function that will resolve to the component. So like it's basically the import. It's just like if you did import name, like icons /person.svg. So it's the same value, right? It's basically this. So like the object that is returned from the import.meta.glob look like this. So it's icons is equal to like person is equal to import person blah blah blah, and then home is equal to home is equal to this. And actually, if we want to be very, it's this. So this is the object that would be returned from import.meta.glob. So let's actually convert this, and I can say this home and home. So basically, the object that import.meta.glob returned by default looks like this. However, if you ever used import like this, you know that you have to await this function call. And this was just not possible before in Svelte if you also want to server-side render this application. So if you want to server-side render, if you just care about client-side rendering, this is perfectly fine. If you want to also server-side render this application, that was not possible before. But now it is, because now we have the ability to use await inside a component. So you can do await, icons, blah, blah. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Oh gosh, sorry. But yeah, like you can now do this, which is very nice. Like I think this is one of the nicest things that came out of async await. The fact that you can dynamically import a component by name. Okay, let's see. I see there are some other comments. Fair enough. I meant, so let me highlight your comment. I meant that it's more complex for you guys now that we have more options, but I take your point on board. Oh yeah, it's definitely way more complex for the Svelte team. Again, like I do have a bit of knowledge of how all of this works, but like the bulk of the knowledge is inside Simon, Rich, and Elliot head. I mean, it's not in their head, like we talked about it, like it's not everything in their head, but like they are the main people that have the knowledge about how all of this works. So it definitely makes things a bit more complex, but to be fair, like the possibility that it unlocked is so massive that like it's an absolute win in my head. Even just for like remote functions, that's already a huge win. Okay, there's also a question about JD saying how long you are with Svelte team, by the way. I think at this point it's 1.5 years. I started contributing probably 2 years ago. Contributing more like in a more stable way. So I started contributing a lot more a couple of years ago, and then after 6 months or so, they actually invited me to become a maintainer, and I obviously said, "Oh my God, yes, I could not wait for that." But yep, okay, yeah, this was a small detour, which I hope you appreciated. Fix properly invoke iterator.return during reactivity loss check. So reactivity loss check is a new, like, there's basically turning back to the reactivity part, there is still, like, reactivity still has one problem, which is that while runes are now very deep, in the sense that if I have a function like double, like this, that returns count times 2, right? And I have let double result is equal $derived double, you might remember that this would not work in Svelte 4, but now it works. So if I do double result, this will actually stay like fully. This will actually stay fully reactive, and the reason is that signals actually works at whatever level you are So if I do function deep is equal to return double like this, and I do deep, this will still work. So like there's basically no, like you can go as deep as you want and the reactivity will always persist. However, for like to do the magic that we do with async await, we can't do that. Now, if I just add an await here, this will still work and there are no issue here. And the reason why this still works is because the only reason why you lose an await, like you lose reactivity during await, is if you have an async function and you await promise.resolve, for example. So if I do this, you see this error here, which is the await reactivity loss. So the problem here is basically that if you have a single await before reading a value that needs to react, then we can't basically do the magic, the compiler magic that we do to make sure that the state basically, because so how it works is that whenever you read something inside the derived, we know that we are inside this derived, and so we keep track of the fact that count is a dependency of this derived. But if you have an await in this chain, what happens is that the moment you have an await, we basically can't know anymore that you are inside this derived. Now, if you are using an await like this, we can still do it. So even if you are using an await like this, as long as you pass the value here, so we can, if you do count like this, and then you pass down, so it's count, and then you pass down count, and then you pass down count here, then it works and there's no issue with that. But if you don't do this, you will lose reactivity. So if we go back to this, let's say that I do this, and let's say that I do this, and do this. Now, in this case, I actually lost reactivity. So if I do this, you can see that now this doesn't update anymore. So given that this can be problematic, what we do is that if we do detect that you are reading a value that is after an await at runtime, we throw a warning so that during dev time, you know that, hey, we detected reactivity loss when reading count. This happens when state is read in an async function after an earlier await. So this basically it's a way for us to warn you about the oh, my beautiful face is covering the logs. I'm sorry. And thank you for beautiful, because I don't think that's true. But yeah, the point is, this is the log basically, and the point is that we can detect this at runtime, and we can warn you about this problem so that you can actually fix your code. And the problem was that if you were using an iterator, we were not properly calling iterator.return, and this probably led to break async iterators. So basically, if you were using an async iterator like this, and iterators are something that is very, I mean, it's just too big of a it's just too big of a reproduction for this. But basically, like if you do for await, this is a very powerful syntax. Like the async iterator is something that is very powerful, because you can asynchronously always send down some data. So it's very powerful, and it was broken because of this, like the reactivity loss check. Remove trailing semicolon from @const tag printer. So a few times ago, if you remember, I shared that now Svelte has a print function, and the print function is basically something that you can pass in the Svelte AST, and it will spit out a Svelte component, basically. And the problem was that inside, like when it read the @const tag, so why is this not closed? So basically the point was that if you had code that looked like this, it would generate code that looked like this, which means that like this is broken Svelte 5 code. And so obviously this was like a problem, and I don't know why the PR was closed, but this was not closed. Oh, because yeah, it's actually it was reopened. Oh, okay, so there is another problem here. That is the keyword in has been replaced with extend. Okay, so this is actually, so it's not completely fixed. That's why it's broken. And let me actually assign myself so I will remember later, and I will fix it later on. Okay, so sorry for like this little detour. Okay, so this was 6 days ago, and then we have 4 days ago, which is a feature, which is export tween options, spring update option, and updater from Svelte Motion. I think this is just a matter of types. Like this should just be, yeah, it's just the types that are required for the public method signature, so that if you want to have a separate variable, you can use these types to store them. Ensure HMR wrapper forwards correct start and node to active effect. So this is once again one of the issue that came from the PR that fixed the HMR. And the reason was that basically inside the HMR, we need to create our own effect to keep track of whenever it changes, we need to remount the component. And however, effects also keep track of the DOM elements that they need to remove from the DOM. So whenever you destroy an effect, it will keep track of, okay, I need to remove from this node to this node. And this was not happening during the component, like the effect that was created inside the HMR wrapper. And so this meant that it removed the wrong nodes, and now instead they are forwarded to the actual active effect. So, okay, so let's see if we have any new release. We have a new release for ESLint plugin Svelte, which is add Svelte max lines per block rules to enforce maximum line count per block in Svelte single file component. That's actually very nice. I didn't know about that we added this rule, and that's actually very nice. So basically, this is a new plugin that you can put into your code so that if your if block or each block becomes too bloated, it will like warn you or like error you to force you to split that into a separate component. There's also fit ignore parenthetical notes in Svelte ignore comments. Okay, I think this is nice because, okay, if this is what I'm understanding it is, so Svelte 5 is cool with this, but this plugin is using no unused Svelte linked ignore. Okay, so basically the point, yeah, okay, that's what I really like. I am happy about this change, because sometimes you want to ignore something and you might want to do so by leaving also a comment about why you are ignoring something. And before it was not really possible because there is a no unused Svelte ignore that parsed the Svelte ignore, like basically it tried to like check if you were actually ignoring something with whatever, and then with text, and then with I, and then with won't. So basically what you can do now is that you can parenthesize this thing and you can remove the, like basically it's ignored in the list of things that you want to ignore. And so this way you can actually leave some comment about why you are ignoring that specific things. I love it. Like these are actually two very good new ESLint rule that I'm excited about. And I mean, I don't think it's like, it's not so easy to be excited about an ESLint rule. So I think it has props. A command line interface. Okay, so this is a new release about SV, which is 2. Yeah, it's 3 days ago, and stricter logic for runes mode. So right now, if you are creating a new project, that's actually a change that Jean did a few weeks ago. So if I do cd stuff and I create a new project, as we create, show this week in Svelte. That's this week in Svelte test. SvelteKit minimal, TypeScript. I don't know. I don't need any of this really. PM. Okay, so now if I move to this week in Svelte test, and if I do but Svelte config, this is the Svelte config that is generated by the library, by the SVCLI. And you will see this thing here. So right now, if you are creating a new project, you will be in rune mode for your own files. So this is basically excluding all the libraries that you might use, because obviously if you want to use a library that is using legacy syntax, we don't want to mess with your libraries. But this will make sure that your code will be expecting runes. Now obviously, like this is just the generation, so you can actually just change it if you want to use legacy mode. But I think like at this point, enough time is passed that most of your project will actually use runes mode, especially new ones. And so this is a nice touch that will actually try to bring more people to the runes world, and then they will love it, and then they will continue to use it. Okay, so let's switch back here. We have feat mdsvex, enable svx md extension by default in config. So if you are now creating an mdsvex project with this VCLI, you can enable svx and .md extension by default in the config. So those are also considered as Svelte component. And bump ESLint to v10 and update related dependency. And then there is a new feat, which is drizzle, and add Cloudflare D1 database. So basically this allows you to use drizzle with the Cloudflare D1 database, which is a database that basically you get for free when you deploy on Cloudflare. So this is pretty nice. Okay, then we have, what else? Anything else? All right. Okay, that's it for today, guys. Again, it is a bit shorter today because there's been less release and I don't have a showcase, unfortunately. But I hope that you still learned something, and I hope that you still enjoyed your time with me. And I'll see you guys next Friday, hopefully with some showcase. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye-bye.